It's not
we,
recording. It's going live.
yep, okay. So, 다시 들래,
Yeah.
다시 들래. 로상가 몰라.
konnichiwa. So,
Konnichiwa.
konnichiwa. Last time we only had a very short lesson, part because I was talking so much. So I thought today we should do a little bit more lesson and then we can talk some more.
이게
Do we need
저래.
translation?
I did it. Yeah.
그래서 띵을라니 그런 게 계좌만 보지 시행이서라. 아니 롭센티아 뭐시티아 디시라 중마서 드린 롭센티아 디 망아치 계좌데스 용아 시행이서.
So for the lesson today, we're going to do a little bit like we did on Friday and then a couple of other new things.
아니 드린 롭센티아 디 가상사 바상라 도와낭 시 주빈이스 가시 데사와직 주빈이서.
I'm going to ask people questions. So I'm going to say your name and ask you a question. You don't have to speak Japanese.
구두게.
쓴다.
에? 니처럼.
So,
그런 게 지어지긴 삼행전이야.
so if I ask you, for example, what do you want? You don't have to say a Japanese sentence. You could just say 1,000,000 rupees. Or ice cream, chocolate momos. Remember?
아니 그런 게
Mm.
그런 게 가져라 지와당도 인지민지 일본기계 돈에 발행하고 말해서.
Remember something interesting and fun and easy to remember. If you say, I want dinner, or if you say chocolate momos, maybe more interesting.
아니 내 잡도야 내 진짜야 남주도 랭원에 딱도 안 들어맞아라 캔서 접소인데 자자 근데 잡나야 가요래서.
Has anyone ever had chocolate momos?
Yes.
Yes?
She's lying.
너네 와우 뭐뭐네 사이.
Now I want chocolate momos.
신부인데.
Okay. Kajula, where do you live? I'm going to come to your house for chocolate momos.
Oh, I had from Bangalore.
Bangalore.
Yeah,
Next time I go.
first and last. Not
Next
nice.
time I go to Sarah J, I'll go through Bangalore and have them there. Okay. So if I ask you a question, you can just say the simple answer. You don't have to say Japanese. Okay?
아니 그런 게 지워지도 좀봐 레니 일본기계 돈에 라우마레스 레 답대고지대나 디레서.
And remember, if you don't understand, stop.
고마체나 디스톱 라지야 디치사.
If I do stop, it means wait and listen.
아니 그런 게디 스톱 라디 좀바니 고네 nye 라고레사.
Okay? Okay.
Yes.
Let's begin. 하지마리마쇼. It means let's begin in Japanese. Thank you very much. Okay, I'll share the screen. There you go. I've lost. Your faces. This is strange. Sorry about that. I can't see any of your faces when I share the screen. Why is that? Sorry, I'm just trying to figure out how to get
Okay.
if I can't see your faces, I can't actually see when you put your hand up.
はい。
Show video. There it is. Got it.
So is it okay now?
Yes, have it now. Thank you. Better. Okay. So, Jigme-san, 何が欲しいですか？Jigme-san, Jigme-san, 何が欲しいですか？
Horse butterfly.
Horse butterfly. Jigme-san は horse butterfly が欲しいです。What did I just say?
Jigme
What
wants
did I say?
Want horse butterfly.
horse butterfly.
Yes. What does sun mean?
Says
For
I said Jigme-san. What does that? How do you say Jigme-san in Tibetan?
Jigme la? For
Yes.
Jigme?
はい、はい、そうです。
はい、そうです。
日本語、Jigme-san. Tibetan, Jigme-la. 日本語、日本系。Okay?
日本語、日本系。日本語、日本系。日本語、日本系。
インジ系。English? インジ語。日本語、インジ語。Tibetan 語。系。Okay? さあ、ジグメさんは、ホースバタフライが欲しいです。Okay? ダワさん、ジグメさんは何が欲しいですか？ジグメさんは何が欲しいですか？
Horse butterfly.
はい、そうです。
はい、
ジグメさんはホースバタフライが欲しいです。ダワさんは何が欲しいですか？
Apple flower.
アップルフラワー。おー。ダワさんはアップルフラワーが欲しいです。カドさん、ダワさんはホースバタフライが欲しいですか？いいえ。そうです。いいえ。ダワさんはホースバタフライが欲しくないです。ダワさんはWhat was it?
Apple flower.
アップルフラワーが欲しいです。アップルフラワーが欲しいです。ジグメさんはホースバタフライが欲しいです。ジグメさんはアップルフラワーが欲しいですか？
いいえ。
いいえ。
え
ジグメさんはアップルフラワーが欲しくないです。ジグメさんはホースバタフライが欲しいです。カトさんは何が欲しいですか？
chocolate sky.
チョコレートスカイ。カトさんはチョコレートスカイが欲しいです。ゴンポもチョコレートスカイが欲しいです。 ゴンポもチョコレートスカイが欲しいです。What did I just say?
Gonpa also wants.
Gonpa also like.
Also wants. So も also. ゴンポもチョコレートスカイが欲しいです。Don't worry about it. We'll do that in another lesson. We're not going to, but we would if we had another lesson. But this is just to pause for a minute. This is an example where you can add little things in that are not on the list of words to remember, but they're easy to remember in context. Like on Friday, I said, "So desu," and you understood. You can add little things and people will find it very easy to remember. Like in Tibetan, you say, "Deso, deso." Everyone remembers that very easily. Tashi leg, tujije, leso. Easy to remember because you use it all the time. Okay? Do you need translation?
그래서 아니 단다디 페이지를 진짜 값수다 단다 코랑게 대 도중으로 지치도 디낭을 내줘 근데 아니 이거 기지시디 페이지 요든데 레이레서
카조さんは 초콜릿 스카이가 欲しいです. gonpoも 초콜릿 스카이가 欲しいです. 카조さん, 카조さんは jigmeさんが 欲しいですか? 카조さん, 카조さんは jigmeさんが 欲しいですか?
Horse
What did
butterfly.
what did I ask? What was I asking?
Kando also like what Jigme likes.
We haven't talked about likes, have we? I said,
No, want.
Kato-san wa? Kato-san? Jigme-san? Hoshii desu ka? Does Kato want Jigme? Iie.
Yeah.
Hai. Hai. Iie. Kato-san wa Jigme-san ga hoshiku nai desu. Oh. Kato-san wa Jigme-san ga hoshiku nai desu. Kato-san wa チョコレートスカイが欲しいです。カドさんはチョコレートスカイが欲しいです。カドさんはジグメさんが欲しくないです。カドさん、ダワさんが何が欲しいですか？カドさん、カドさん、ダワさんが何が欲しいですか？
Apple flower.
Apple flower. そうです。So this is just to step out for a minute. If you have a class, this is a good way to check to make sure everyone's paying attention. And if I'm asking, it's always say to the class, if I'm asking one person a question, everybody else should also think of an answer because I will ask them too. Any translation?
아니 단다 디와 당하시다. 아니 상마이다 길라이 디와 당그라. 니 수수미 룩주 상마이다 렌주라 디삼노 당고레사. 술 디와 지네 하고 말아.
So, Dawa-san, Kajo-san wa nani ga hoshii desu ka?
Sky. A chocolate sky.
はい、そうです。
はい、そうです。
Kajo-sanはチョコレートスカイが欲しいです。ジグメさん、ダワさんが何が欲しいですか？
apple butterfly. Apple
Apple
flower.
flower. はい、そうです。ダワさん、アップルフラワーがありますかかいいえ、
いいえ、
アップルフラワーがありません。
せられません。
おー。
あ
ダワさんはアップルフラワーが欲しいです。でも、but、ダワさんはアップルフラワーがありません。おー。アップルフラワーはどこにありますか？アップルフラワーはどこにあります
ります。
か？
Dawa's house.
Imagination.
That was house
In Dawa's house.
にありますか? Okay. Jumper. So one person put the hand up, so everybody should also say stop, 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 stop. Everybody's saying, yeah.
あ
Listen again. Apple flower はどこに Okay. どこにありますか? What am I asking?
それ I have one confuse because
Yes.
that was a what I can't see what where I don't know.
Yes.
It's
So
what
what isn't here?
that
It's not
was
on the
what
screen.
you mean so what
Yes.
I can't see what where what means.
So wa is an example of a very difficult to explain grammar pattern. A simple explanation is it's a subject indicator. It tells you what the subject of the sentence is. But for students to understand that can take a lot of explanation. So usually I would say, listen many, many times, and you will understand by hearing it many, many times, rather than trying to understand an explanation. Any translation?
Anda.
what's in it 된다 가르래신데. 그 셀레타 그거 대시제
나.
그거 용세 년에 고용 거래라기도 하고. 나와서
응.
what 지어라. 그
응.
what 쓰려면도 제가 뒤
어디 있어
what
말이야. 디딩 있어.
가르고.
제가 제바보요. 제바보 제바보 아니 무진 체겐도 진짜라. 무진 체겐도 진짜라 간다. 그래. 무진 체겐도 진짜라. 제바보라 수준부 저렇게 했어. 그래서 이내 디야 믹스 대시 잡고치는 고추에 고뇨가 이랬어. 데리송구다. 근데 제바보라 수준부 저렇게 했어.
Wahako masra. Tiko tse kaleka koyres kela ikosa. Ani di yangsi namju ni mang nyen la yus nyen mangbo nyen sa wechela nga tsuta tenda ane di insar samya ti kwali gire la sa. Tenda ti ya wahako masa.
So a simple explanation could be,
Ane.
it tells you what the main person or thing of the sentence is.
Okay.
Sikruta di deshe ta nga tsuta deshe chayo ma jana la sa. Ni dinangi tsa sikrup chigi nanglo la mina zo jora di su ime dungire sa.
But it can change. So, okay.
Okay.
So, apple flower wa Dawa's house ni arimasu ka? Dawa-san, Dawa-san. Dawa-san's house ni apple flower ga arimasu ka? Apple flower ga arimasu ka?
はい。
arimasu
あります。あります。
arimasen.
いい。
Apple
Arimasu.
flower ga arimasen.
あります。
ありません。
arimasen.
Arimasen.
arimasen. Dawa-san wa
あ
apple flower ga hoshii desu. Demo, but Dawa-san wa apple flower ga arimasen. Apple flower wa Dawa's house ni arimasu ka? Arimasen.
あります。
Apple flower wa Dawa's house ni arimasen. Dawa-san wa apple flower ga hoshii desu. Apple flower wa doko ni arimasu ka? Oh, this one agree too. Doko ni arimasu. So remember, what am I asking? What's the question I'm asking? Apple flower wa doko ni?
Mountain.
Dokoni meaning we can't see.
is.
Tell it. Yeah. There is.
Mountain.
Where is apple flower?
Where is
Mountain.
the apple flower? Apple flower doko ni arimasu ka? Where is the apple flower? And I go like this. So I need from you information.
Rinchen house.
Rinchen house. Apple flower wa Rinchen house ni arimasen. Oh. Sumimasen. Sumimasen. Gonda. Sumimasen. Rinchen's house ni apple flower ga arimasu ka?
Hey.
Arimasen. Arimasen.
ありま
ありません。
す。あります。
Apple flower ga arimasen. Rinchen house ni apple flower ga arimasen.
あります。
Arimasen. Apple flower doko ni arimasu ka?
あライブラリー。
The library. Library ni apple flower ga arimasu ka? Arimasen.
あります。
The moon. The moon ni arimasu.
The
Apple
moon.
flower ga wa the moon. Moon ni arimasu.
うん。
Dawa-san wa apple flower ga hoshii desu.
The moon.
Demo, but Dawa-san wa
Ah.
apple flower ga arimasen.
あります。
Arimasen.
Ah.
Dawa-san's house ni apple flower ga arimasen.
Arimasen.
Rinchen-san's house ni arimasen. Library ni arimasen. Moon ni arimasu. Demo, but Demo, Dawa-san wa doko ni arimasu ka? Dawa-san wa doko ni arimasu ka? Dawa-san wa
ここにあります。
Dawa's house ni arimasu ka?
あります。
Arimasu. Dawa-san, what am I asking? Dawa, listen again. Listen again. Dawa-san wa doko ni arimasu ka?
Where is Dawa?
Where is Dawa? Then I asked, Dawa-san wa Dawa's house ni arimasu ka?
あります。
What was that question? Dawa-san wa Dawa's house ni arimasu ka?
カタカナズ
Is
は。じゃあ、
Once more, what am I asking? Dawa-san wa Dawa's house ni arimasu ka? What am I asking? What's the question?
Where is at the house?
Doko ni arimasu ka is where is Dawa. Dawa's house ni arimasu ka is at Dawa's house question. So the question was, is Dawa at Dawa's house? Arimasu. Demo, Dawa's house ni apple flower ga arimasen. Moon ni apple flower ga arimasu. Okay? Moon ni arimasu. Apple flower ga moon ni arimasu. Moon. Everyone understand moon? How do you say moon in Tibetan?
Dawa.
あ
Clairvoyant. Is Dawa's house Dawa? Okay. Dawa's house ni apple flower ga arimasen. Demo, Dawa-san wa apple flower ga hoshii desu. Apple flower, Dawa-san ga apple flower ga arimasen. Dawa, kanoshii desu. Sad. Naze naraba? Because Dawa-san ga apple flower ga hoshii desu. Dawa-san wa apple flower ga hoshii desu. Dawa-san wa apple flower ga hoshii desu. Dawa-san wa Dawa, the moon, I'm going to say the moon because it's easier. The moon ni ikimasu. Moon ni ikimasu. Dawa-san wa moon ni ikimasu. What am I saying?
Dawa go to moon.
Yes. はい、そうです。素晴らしい。Dawa-san wa moon ni ikimasu. Dawa-san wa apple flower ga hoshii desu. Moon ni apple flower ga arimasu. Dawa-san wa moon ni ikimasu. Moon ni apple flower ga arimasu ka? Arimasu. はい、そうです。moonにアポフラワーがあります。ダワさんは moon に行きます。moon に、アポフラワーは moon にあります。ダワ、ハッピーですか？ハッピーですか？
です。
いいえ。
いいえ。
ダワ様、ハッピーじゃないです。Oh. Why? Because the moon has no air and Dawa dies. Oh, we're all sad because Dawa died. So that's about 30 minutes, and we probably should have a short break. Do you want to have a short break or do you want to keep going? Who wants a break? Okay. Break. Yep. 5 minutes?
ダメです。OK。
5分钟。5分钟 is Chinese. 5分。です。です。 Eso.
Chiwachi lashina. Nando jishana tiga sarao. Te gombola chiwachi yo kaisina charangi tandati Japanese yona kiri shemba lotri tenso la ladika sala 참살라 로트에서 천년 고만서 왔더니 참살로 연구돼 왜스.
So, Gichambala has a question. Like when you were teaching Japanese, is there by any chance, a student doesn't understand anything at all?
So when I was in the room with students, one of the things that I would do, and I would tell other teachers to do, is pardon me, teach to the eyes. That means if you look in a student's eyes, you can tell, are they going, or they're going, because there's different eyes to nothing, maybe a little, and oh, I understand.
Ale, tadi namju kare lobsen chidi migla ta gore lasra lobtrugi migla ta nani hagu resa konzu kotsugi meta konzu nyobi meta khande ne tenzo.
단다 예미를 따는 고치에서 상근은 고치에서 말해 상근은.
Now by looking at Gichambala's eyes, like not now, like during the class.
During the class.
Yeah.
This is where, yeah.
Yeah.
This is where it's difficult for me because I'm not used to teaching on Zoom. And difficult because I have to look, oh, which eyes? There's like, oh, 7 people's eyes. Where do I look? In the classroom, I would walk around and I'd be looking at all the students in the classroom. So difficult with a group. But my understanding is that Asukiya normally has class of 1 student or 2 or 3. So it's easier. So are we happy to stop the lesson and then talk about it? Or do you want to keep going with the lesson a bit more?
Kante change tadi tanda Nihongi lobse chida jora di druge yana tinde tiwatlen chige kante chesa.
Ti maumerahe.
만돈 지그라 이나 영화 고치 참아서 당원에 참아서 가이나 조타이나 이나 나디 치 참아 고마서 에너지 나니도 텐지 로디가서 문에 고치 참아서
Get Chambala and get Samala, they are saying they didn't understand anything.
Anything at all?
Yeah, anything at all.
Okay, let's have a test.
오케이.
Ga hoshii desu. If you know, yes, I know. Be quiet. Just say, yes, put your hand up. Yes, ga hoshii desu. What does it mean? Ga hoshii desu. If you know, put your hand up like this. Hoshii desu. I'll give you an example. Dawa-san wa apple flower ga hoshii desu. Ga hoshii desu. Yes? No?
오시디스.
Who says, yes, I understand? Ga hoshii desu.
So for everyone?
Just one. If you do, yes. If you don't, just go, no. Ga hoshii desu. No? 1, 2. So the people that were answering questions, yes, I understood, yes, I understood. The people who are quiet don't understand.
Chesa.
You translate?
Chesa. Len ganye tinzu ki kotsugi like doasa. Len majanye ki kotsugi mindu like doasa.
So if that was an actual class, I would then, the people who are answering questions, great. Then I would start focusing on the people who are quiet and focus on them.
Ale tindangwa shi tidu ni kare len maja tanda len maja nyen zula tona manga di resa konge.
So if this was an actual class, I would go to Jampa-san, what did I say? And probably Jampa-san would go, but then I would say, okay, remember, if you don't understand, stop me. Did you stop me? Oh, you must stop me because we need 100% understanding.
Yeah. Yeah. Each words I a little bit understood, but how can fix the sentence? I don't. Maybe it's a little bit quickly, so I
Yes.
don't understand.
Because I have been not teaching for a long time,
Yeah.
I was speaking too quickly.
Yeah.
But also, it's important to remember every student will have a different time taken to understand. So the people who are answering, I understand. People who weren't answering, more repetition, more and more and more. And for this class, I was going too fast, not just speaking, but too much information. Okay, do you need translation?
네.
Okay, I'll show you
단다.
something.
딱꼬치
Keep translating.
Mhm.
Yeah, translate, it's okay.
Ale ko dadi kare malam ni os to so sa ni ke des jogo tanda tring chidi tamba des jogo juda la sa ani tring jogo jo ma se sigyang mangbo du sa da mangbo sa mangbo nyam de la ra ani des kange te yigire
If it was a normal lesson, I would probably do that and that. These things here, probably already know, and not all this in one lesson like we did today.
ngone jinda chigin bai na ni nge tinje mangbo ti ma re sa thangbo gangi chigdwa di da ni wa tinzo arima slash da tinzo lab ki re sa ani dikima tinzo chigchina lob chu shinge yorelas
This would probably be a whole lesson, 1 hour, or maybe 1.5 hours.
딘도 상만 추제직 양마 추제직의 차가 거기래.
I wanted to do this today so I could give an example of a story.
알레. 디와든 종아 드린 친이 줘서 가인스나 디 찾아져야 중로 슬로우도 중디 베디 되니 줘서나스.
At the very beginning, 4 or 5, maybe 6 words is enough.
당보 동마니 틱nga 싱nga 트루드시기 디기 요레레스.
So after the first lesson, everybody would have cut, high, yeah, no problems.
아니 롭센 당보 찾아외제는 디가다 헤이다 에든졸라 강에 메와 찾아레스.
So really the new words would be gahoshides, hoshkunai, nani, ga arimasu, ga arimasen.
안젤 틱사바든 조단당할 고용할 먹어래다 요래래든 조레사.
So that's one of the important points, is to not go too fast, as in not speak too fast, but also keep the range of new language very small.
아니 칼레 라베다 냠도니 틱사르바디 망봄베바 디니 케침보레라스.
But it's important to keep the new language mainly focused on grammar.
라베 사르바주라 디 망치어 디니 카레 다트강라 디 믹스카니 체나 야가 요레라스. 케체르라스 디체아디.
So wants, doesn't want, has, doesn't have was mainly grammar.
아니 고단도 다트라라스.
It's okay to use English or whatever language that student has for things like the moon or chocolate momos or apple flower.
칼라소디 책도 일본어는 매교든 저기 인지능을 비슷한 줄라세. 디간지에 보고mas.
Because when you introduce the new grammar, sorry, did you finish?
No, no. I didn't hear that properly. Can you repeat that, please? Sorry.
So when you're introducing new grammar structures like wants or there is like hoshi and arimasu, it's okay to use English words or their first language words like apple flower or horse butterfly.
Dawa. That's
Dawa.
yes. 아니 알레 단단하지 다든 주 장대 잠바 디레도 인지 책다 아니 수수 있게 된 비주 친해 디레라스 렌자데.
Because once they understand the wants there is, those things, they will pick up all those other words very, very quickly. They will learn those other words they want to know.
Okay, first they have to get to know grammar.
So for example, yes, they have to get to know if you say I want or wants, and somebody says I want momo, I want chocolate, they'll learn very quickly momo, chocolate, they'll learn sampa, they'll learn tentok, all these other words really, really easily because they're focusing on want.
Mm-hmm. Oh, but they understood.
Okay? Because if you give them the structure, the grammar structure, then they can learn these other words because they want to. They're interested. They're motivated. Okay?
Yeah.
아코디 디숭가에서 단다 원 생각 원래 디식디션 소나 안디 제라 아니 다니 가르쳐줘라 다니 심바 장야라 나시 심슈 파르도 그래 라줘라 디숭가에서
제가 든지 이디가슬라 동보 스트래티지 데 피게라 이게는 체마가 와지 파산데스 동보 야부치 디셔나 에잠부 텔레테네 모부지 하콘도 그러알 든지 체크도 요 말이벨라다
Chambala, he's suggesting that if you like now words are separated, right? Not in one sentence. He said if the same one structure is shown to all the students, then it would be easier for the student to understand.
Yes. So usually, if I was teaching in a class, I would just have that. If that's the focus, what I want them to learn, I would learn that. And I would just point.
Mm-hmm.
And I wouldn't have all the other things because it's too distracting. But I didn't manage that this time.
Like Gitambala is saying, the student would like a full sentence.
Yes.
Not is ka.
The important thing is to hear and understand first, because if you have a full sentence and we're using the English letters, see this here, for somebody like me who speaks English, I see that and I try and make a English sound. For example, ga. I say ga because I'm used to it. But most people say gay, ga, gu, ga, gay. But their actual Japanese pronunciation is nga. Nga. So this is like the Tibetan nga.
Uh-huh.
It's not ga, it's nga. Okay? And also, if you see this one on the end, arimasu, if you see the English, for an English speaker. Pronunciation, arimas,
arimasu.
So, arimasu.
Arimasu.
Really important to hear and understand, and then see. So when I point, if I was pointing on the board, I'd only point to the English. I want them to hear and then think meaning for the English. Okay? And as soon as possible, have them looking at the written language. So what I would do for the Japanese would be to show them this and then read with them like we started to do on Friday. So, Bob wa chocolate ga hoshii desu. Because then they send, that's where there is hoshii. Ga hoshii desu. So they can associate the sound with that visual stimulus, with those things. Because one of the biggest problems in Australia is that people try and see the English letters and make English sounds that don't fit Chinese, Japanese, Tibetan. But they need to understand first before they see the sound. So before they see the letter. When I tried to learn Tibetan and they said, memorize the letters, I'm going, that's so boring. So boring to memorize letters and no meaning. But if you see the sentence, ga hoshii desu. Oh, chocolate ga hoshii desu. Chocolate ga hoshii desu. If you see that, then there's more motivation. Okay?
또 디다 년 있어라 자디 당보. 그라미기 디자디 당보 년 죄체 엔 젤라 칙든 수야.
So I might say a few more things and then ask for more questions after that, if that's okay. So one thing that came up just then was when I was talking about grammar. So there's one person who teaches Chinese in America, Dr. Terry Waltz, who came up with this group of 7 verbs. And she says, if we teach these 7 verbs, then you can have a basic conversation. And we went very quickly today because we did once, at, there is, have, go, is, in one lesson. That's too much in one lesson. But the idea is that if students can use these 7 verbs, they can have a basic conversation. Do we need translation, or is that okay?
디베. 단도 칙 듄 디셈바이나니 가량아주 기자 데스 칙셰 두이서라. 시제 기자
So the idea of only using the target language, only using Tibetan, is very, very good. Did I disconnect there for a minute? Did I disconnect?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. What did I say? What did you hear? So the idea of speaking only Tibetan is very, very important, but they need a basic amount of Tibetan before we can have speaking only Tibetan. And these verbs will be very good to get that basic level. Okay.
Like you would need to know our language as well while teaching second language.
You don't need to know,
Okay.
because if you have, like I showed you, the English and the Japanese, all you need is the Tibetan and their language. It
Okay.
helps to speak their language because you can give little grammar pop-ups. So the idea is that you always speak in Tibetan, but sometimes you need to explain a little bit of grammar, maybe 15 seconds, 20 seconds, 30 seconds, maybe no more than that. Today, I was speaking a lot in English because we're just starting. It's a first lesson. But the idea is Tibetan, 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 point to the English or French or whatever language. And then, if possible, short explanation in their language of the grammar. But not necessary. If you can't speak Russian or Japanese or whatever language, then it's okay, but it's a bit harder. That's all.
So the teacher, like, not necessary to know the target, no, the student's language, right?
It's easier, but not necessary. Just like today, when I said Jigme san, Jigme la, easier, but not necessary. Because how do you explain la? Jigme la. Even in English, how would you explain?
For jigme.
But see, this is when I first started learning Japanese, they said san is an honorific suffix. And I went, what? What does that mean? And then when I started teaching, I just said, it's a polite way to say someone's name. You can say Jigme, no problems.
Oh,
But
no.
Jigme la, more polite. And listen and you'll understand. So that's the most important thing. There's going to be grammar structures you cannot explain. Then you have to give many, many, many examples of how it's used. Jumper asked a very good question. What does wa mean? I asked the same question when I started learning Japanese. And my Japanese teacher then was like a Zen master. Use it many times and you'll understand. And I went, how can I use it if I don't understand? How can I understand if I don't use it? Zokche. But this method now, you can say it's the main person of the sentence. Listen many times and you'll understand. But then as a teacher, you have to make sure you use it many, many times so they hear many, many examples. Like a baby will understand language by hearing it many, many, many times. And I'm sorry if I'm telling you things you already know. You probably know all of this I'm telling you already. So the seven main points. One other thing I'll tell you about. Let's go to this one. Yeah, just a few things, a few points. Because the way that I was teaching today is not the only way. So some of the things that I was doing was point and pause, where I would highlight the word and wait. Because it takes a few seconds for people to understand. It takes a few seconds for people to understand. When I say, ga hoshii desu, and pause while I point to the English. Slow. I wasn't going slow today. Sorry. Teach to the eyes. Looking at their eyes we talked about before. Circling. So circling is what I was doing before. Jigme-san ga nani ga hoshii desu ka? Jigme-san wa horse butterfly ga hoshii desu. Jigme-san wa apple flower ga hoshii desu ka? Iie. Jigme-san wa apple flower ga hoshikunai desu. Jigme-san wa horse butterfly ga hoshii desu. That's circling. And there's many videos on that. Comprehension checks. Do we need translation or are we okay?
네, 계절 코드가 이 단도 gelagi 단도 di laida thangbo di point and pause slash da 6 hour ngod chi di zamba test chi kara samsha ane korangi tik del zugu zugu yesa nganzo gi ke ji yora da pyi na yaman inji na nihon gi ke lab ge na tara nganzo gi tik del so pe ji da ane ti wat risha la jora tenzu tizu zugu ya de la point and pause la de resa ane khali dra de ra lobti chi di zamba khali dra de che lobti chi di lobtu gi mig la ta ya circling la di ani tiwa tin de de ra joba chi su ti gang la ni tiwa kora ya ni tang de de tadan the comprehension check la de les yes kombola
So the personalization was when we were asking individuals, what does Jigme want? What does Dawa want? What does Kadrila want? That's personalization. Sometimes it's possible, sometimes not possible. Sometimes students don't want to talk about themselves. And then, what does the Dalai Lama want? Maybe not so good. What does the Dalai Lama want? Nothing. He doesn't want anything.
Peace.
Translation?
ale ningi comprehension check la di krangi de shija masa di kapsu di tira konzu go lobtru go se de tsemi do tayala anye khalla so lan gi je the jera di ge je the che ani personalization la di chong la jara tira lobtru gi ko la thia samsam lobtru krang ko la she de ba ching marilas ani mission bai ko la do thi di cherish
Comprehension checks. So, what did I just say? That's a comprehension check. So, do you understand? Not good. What did I just say? And translate. What does hoshi desu mean? So you need to ask questions where they require an answer, not just yes or no. When you're doing comprehension checks, understanding checks.
I have a question. Why do you cross? Do you understand is not the right way to check the comprehension, right?
Mm.
Okay.
Because students who are very shy will go, but their eyes say, but they don't want to say, I don't understand. Like before, I'm asking people, do you understand? And everyone's going, in this class, this is teachers. Teachers should be happy to say, I don't understand. But even in this class of teachers, everyone's going, weren't they? Okay.
dengan the comprehension check ji de ba ga nam ji kira go se se la de ke je the yo ma ringa je la ora an kong ge di sung do ji ba kira ha go se la de ma thi che ni dan da khar la so ani sik dum di gi dan da khar re la den de ya de ke je thi bo re sa
The point of pause, like staying inside the fence. So today, again, I didn't do this. It means not using language the students don't know. I used a lot of language that you didn't know. It was too much today.
Stay inside the fence lighting as long look to gi shen jo gi tsi du mang che phe tang ni de de ja an thari nge ti chung ma song sa sik sar ba mang bo cha song las.
And pop-up grammar is just a very, very short explanation of a grammar point. Keep it very short because you want to go back into Tibetan as quickly as possible.
Pop-up grammar la di da zhu gang la da ki si de she ro ja go na di be tundu ka cha tundu nang lo la da tu tu tundu nang lo la de she ja so chi sa mang bo ma na las.
So the discussion, the questions need to be compelling. The input they receive, what they hear, needs to be interesting, easy to remember, relevant to them, and personal if possible.
Look to ma chi de ro je ra da ma ju gi tong ze ra tong lense lo len bu lense ra lense di kap so ni di lense di ning je mo go re las ra des nga ju chembal de ro da dewa yu jo da ya ke si look to da dewa yu jo din de chung ai na di ya go yo res.
When I first started teaching using this method, I tried it in 2014. And I had one class where I did a story where a turtle had a rubber ball as a girlfriend, but ate the rubber ball and died.
Ni do ka ze lo so ni do ju shi le go zu ila sa. Ni do ju shi le lo chen ti ya go zu ni sa da di tin da kap su kar chi re. What happened in that class?
So there was a story about a tortoise. Do you know a turtle?
Ribe. Yes.
Ribe.
That had a girlfriend, and the girlfriend was a ball.
Alel.
And then the turtle ate the ball and died.
Alel. Ku zinda tang wo chi di za ba da dung ji sa dung di tang wo ribe je res ribe di kare ro po mo di tin sa ra polo in sa ra. Ani kare di ribe di polo di sa ribe di shi re las. Ta din de ro go sa ra.
And some of the, sorry, finished?
Yes.
Some of the students stopped studying Chinese, but 3 years later, when they were finishing high school, they came back to me and say, I remember that story. I remember the Chinese from that story because I was a Chinese teacher.
Didi jayi lam nyer to gela ke gombla ani dung ti zu thenge du lai du sa khon zu to lob ta theni lai di tanda.
Because those students had come up with that story. Together we made that story. Not my story, their story.
Ale khon zu nyam du se jo in sa ra dung di che za ani kran zu ta do se bal de re sa.
And so crazy, but interesting, memorable, relevant because they made the story.
The lob chu khurang wen se ju do che za ani di chop so da ken zo yo re si ne le ning je mo che ani chamba de da je wa yu jo tin de ro chi re las.
Today, the story that we made was very short and not very memorable, except Dawa and the moon. That's memorable. So probably you remember Dawa and moon. Oh yes, Dawa had to go to the moon for apple. What was it? Apple flower?
Apple flower.
Yes.
But that's personal. So when I was asking you, Jigme-san, nani ga hoshi desu ka? What does Jigme want? That's personal. And then trying to make a joke. Does Kadro want Jigme? No, Kadro wants chocolate sky. So that's
Ani nga zu di nam ju di kare chuang we dan je wa yu gi ti wa den zala sa 아니 다와 가래서 딩기 어 티라 애플 플라워 kushi meto di go ela ro tinte do da ani yang chop do se do ra tinte ge ti wa de tang na di resa
So personal is making it relevant to that person. Do you want to have another 5-minute break?
comment on parse
Break? No break?
yes
Everybody's very shy. I'll close my eyes and you decide. Okay, let's have 5-minute break. Yes.
yes
Yes. Hi.
Good. Okay, 5 minutes.
okay
I was just rolling down some basic simple words of Japanese. I want to say konbawa. Is it good evening?
Konbanwa.
Is it
Konbanwa.
good? Konbawa.
So des. Konbanwa
So
is good evening.
okay.
よくできました。素晴らしい。
Arigatou gozaimasu.
This is where people will, どういたしまして this is where people will pick up language because they want to. They get excited and go, oh, I'm going to learn more. This is good. I'm very excited.
Gonpa,
Yes.
can I make the two sentences of first question and second answer?
Mm.
Is correct or not? I don't know. At time. Dawa wa ga hash this dawa wa nani chocolate hash this.
Very close. ダワは何が欲しいですか
Now, sorry. Dawa wa nani ga hash this.
欲しいです。はい。ですか
Hash this ka. Oh, sorry.
か
Peo. Dawa wa nani ga hash this ka.
はい。
そうですよ。
Answer. Dawa wa apple fly ga hash this.
Before, Dampala,
Oh.
you said, I understand nothing. Now, you said question and answer.
Oh, yes. I take picture, then I 5 minutes to repeat it.
Yes. This is really, really, really important.
Mm.
And so what you give to students to look at for themselves is really important. I'll show you something. Yeah. This is an example of a story that I had prepared for a class. So what I would do is I would teach all the language and then do a story with them, and then I would give them this to look at home.
因为 Tom 是 Elaine 的哥哥，所以 Billy 想跟 Tom 说话，但是 Tom 觉得 Elaine 太年轻了，所以他不想 Elaine 跟 Billy 说话。
So students could see the language in characters and hear the correct pronunciation. So if I was going to do something like that for here, what I would do would be to go back to this story and do the same thing. So I would do it one by one. So if it was going to be can you still see that? Yes?
No.
Now.
Yes.
Yes.
So if I was doing this
Wow.
as yes, I'll give this as an exercise. I would record this. Bob wa chocolate ga hoshii desu.
欲しいです。
Bob wa hotodogo ga hoshii desu ka? いいえ、Bobはホットドッグが欲しくないです。Bobはチョコレートが欲しいです。Bobはピザが欲しいですか 이에 Bob와 피자가 欲しくないです. Bob와 초콜릿가 欲しいです. Bob와 초콜릿가 ありますか? 이에 Bob와 초콜릿가 ありません. And I would record that as a little video and give it to them. It takes time, and if you're doing, my understanding is that you don't have a set grammar and vocabulary you have to teach. Is that correct? You just have topics?
Well, it depends on the teachers. And we don't have we don't really focus on the grammar, and we don't have any set of grammars right now.
In general, the principle with TPRS is always teach the grammar that the students want to learn, but limit the vocabulary. So, for example, what colors do you like is good to teach them. Don't make them learn 20 colors. You probably already know this. I'm sorry if I'm saying things you already know. But it's important to always teach the grammar so that they can learn more themselves. If they know the grammar, they can learn more words themselves very, very quickly. And if you created a story with a student like we did tonight, it's easy just to type it up, send it, and send an audio. So they can hear the correct pronunciation with the letters they see, once they know how to read the Tibetan letters. Recently, when I was trying to learn Tibetan, I enrolled in a course that was supposed to learn just the alphabet. And they said, go and read this for homework. And I said, I have no idea if I have the right pronunciation or not. It's really slow. I didn't understand the meaning of the words. And I thought, this is not effective for me. So I was very slow at learning that way. I wasn't very successful. But if you can understand the words, the process is understand the words through hearing. Once you understand, you attach the meaning you have in your mind to the words you see. If you try them do the meaning and see the words at the same time, it's hard. You understand first, then you attach the meaning to the words you see on the page. Do we need translation, or is that okay?
So, ani ngazogi thangbo chigdi gocho chi lesra. Tiang ni nyeni ni gocho che. Ani jela chigdi gocho sabe jela chigdi ta. Ani jangore lesra chigdi. Chigdi tagi yang thondai gocho ya nyamdu chewaina tuchigla chewaina kale khaga yo relas.
But there's one more thing, sorry, that's all?
Yeah.
One more thing for me to say, that is the repetition. So many, many, many times. I found 60 to 70 times in 1 hour, and students would remember it. There's no more need to worry about it. They remember it very, very easily. It has to be varied. So like if I said, I'm back.
No, we didn't
I'm
hear.
back.
So it has to be varied. The repetition has to be varied. If I say, Jigme-san wa nani ga hoshii desu ka? And Jigme-san wa butterfly, what was it?
Yes,
Horse butterfly. And if we just say, Jigme-san horse butterfly hoshii desu 70 times, so boring.
Mm.
But then we talk about what Dawa wants and what Kadro wants and all these other things to make it more interesting. And if you just want momos, of course, everyone wants momos, but it's quite boring. Chocolate momos, or elephant momos. And then when we were talking about places, we said in the kitchen, at Dawa's house, these are all easy and a bit boring. The moon, the moon, how can there be apple flowers on the moon? That's interesting and a variety. And then twist. Dawa's happy she has apple flowers. No, Dawa died. Everyone goes, so that sort of drama is very useful. Does anybody watch TV dramas? I don't, because I'm a monk now. Before I became a monk, I watched TV dramas. If you pay attention to TV dramas and make your stories in your class like TV dramas, everybody wants to know. So, for example, when I was teaching in Australia, I taught in a high school and they were teenagers. So the stories I told were there were two boys and one girl, and the two boys liked the girl, but so they were trying to make dumplings to impress the girl. And they made dumplings, but she's vegetarian, so she couldn't eat the dumplings. She only veg. And then she doesn't like the boys. Another boy comes. She likes this boy. These two boys don't like this boy because she likes this boy. Then this boy likes this boy. That sort of drama, like a TV drama. And everybody's, and then I had students who would go to the next lesson ahead of what I'm teaching because they really want to know what happens in the story. So they were teaching themselves the language because they were focused on the story, not on studying. And I've had many students. I had one student who did 2 years of Japanese at school and then stopped. But she loved anime. Do you know anime?
Yes. Goody.
She loved Japanese anime. So she loved watching Japanese anime and she watched it in Japanese. So she taught herself Japanese. She had a little bit of school Japanese, but then taught herself Japanese by watching anime. And she knew, because at school I was mainly a Chinese teacher, but she knew I spoke Japanese. So she would come to me and speak to me in Japanese just to show me how much Japanese she had learned from watching anime. So the idea with the stories is they forget about studying, forget about learning. The learning and the studying becomes secondary to following the story. Just like one time, some years ago, I started watching Korean dramas. I got so hooked on Korean dramas. Then I realized as I'm reading the subtitles, I'm recognizing words. I'm going, I'm learning Korean just from watching the drama. I thought, that's good, that's easy, that's fun. So if you can find ways to hook people in like that, that's really important. So that's why I wrote those stories, to have those hooks. The boy likes girl. Gets boring? Add another character, add another person. New person, new love. This doesn't like this love over here. And then one of the discussions was, should this girl have two boyfriends? Like, two boyfriends? And then you can also introduce culture. Because some places, some people in Tibet, one wife, two husbands. Maribet.
그래.
So if you can introduce that culture, that drama to hook them in and have many, many, many repetitions of those things along the way where they want to learn more. And there's different things you can do. So for example, the video I showed before of the story, that's quite a high level story. But when they get to a higher level, you can read them a story. Then they can rewrite the story themselves and come back and you can discuss how close their story was to your story. Am I speaking too much? Do we need translation? Good luck translating all that I just said.
그래서 다른 딜라서 짜르데 제제라 짜르데 가래 죽주 딘주 채워버려서 찍다 장아디 저디 짜르데 죽주 딘주 채워버려서 이나양다 찍찍디 채되나 라 제바 찍찍 짜르데 양게 채되나 랑아 쿠실가 가보 영아 쿠실가 가보 딘데 채되나 녀브두라 아니 찍닝 제모 딘데 세야당 아니 단다 콘즈기 저디 중세야 되더라 아니 중 아주 기시 다디 베디 마셔라 가래 kunzu ikta drung ning je modin de se gore lasra ani drung ning je modin de se ani drung chi po se ya de member che an samsam khona gi gelagi chi drung chi ti do drung di te yo di test chi ko se ya des gale kha ko yona lob tu khorang ne chi ti che la ni ya pha zu chung dur che ya inde yore sa ta lob tu khorang ne drung tin zu se chu luptrugi ta semba nangol anga ki jangi yo samya jora ti chorwa di mate oche drung se ju khonsu tina no ji chu ni luptru khashe khurang gi peji shastra gi ge lop phomo ji yore sa ni hong gi ke loni ji chang isara ani test ji jang isa ti je la ko gi ti guri gi nyen den de ta isara ni hong gi ti ke da nangola chejang ni mo gi ke di shen isara chejang tinde gi yambu luptru khashe tinde ching nanglo ju ni 다 가시 쿠란라 쳔바이네야 가레 디 코리아기 때문으로 직단 인사 코리아기 때문에 녜녜녜네 제라 칙 디왈라 디 서브타이틀 요라 이 왈라 이 저라 디기 칙이 된다다 이 콘조 이게 다지요 말아 니 파수 튜투두사 근데 딘데기야 소소 이신게 신야라 딘데 룩투 가실라 지 니바테야 딘데 지 요레사라 덴조야 지 주주에 저라 룩투라 주주야 kissing ngunjin che tu ba ina lobju gi njo ko shen du ra o den de ro ji la so
I'm sorry I'm speaking too much, but when I start talking about language teaching, I get very excited.
ki labdi za ba qurani ki ye du sa in shu de la sra
So when we're talking about the stories and making things interesting and fun and different, like going to the moon and people dying and girlfriend and boyfriend, it's really important to keep it interesting for you. Because if you're teaching the same thing again and again and again and again, it gets very boring.
ta qurani da tangbu de su dingi la so khare mangbu she gi sara konda la sra qurani ki di malab ji zamba pe kyu du la che zang mangbu she shor gi du la sra ani ngazu ita danda yangya di ri jikwa rangja re sa dingi kisi ta dung do su du zamba ya nyoptu din de yangya chik chik di yangya she ma jo che nyoptu cha du re che zang yakbu din de se ore sa dingi dawa ani dawa kare dawa le ya do ne ani tako gauchung yo mar kajin ko dawa ya lo kare lung yo mar so lung yo mar chesan dawa shire la do ya rung kenzo din de seni ani lobjun zu jang ju res
So for 8 or 9 years, I was teaching the same introductory Chinese course every 6 months, again and again and again, got boring.
ale ko jeyi la bisara jeyi tin zu ya ji tinye la ko la bisara dawa khazila so dawa khashi la bisarira ani odirin sa introduction to jing sara jeyi gi ngondo la ra ngonro dinde lab tu zamba ani tites chik yangya do chik lab de tromshi chik do insa tromshi jua dra me jo do tromshi chik do lab de tu ani nyop to cha du do sa.
Then when I started using this teaching method for the last 5 or 6 years of my teaching in high school, I was still teaching Introduction to Chinese, but every time the story was different. The students would come up with different answers, different wonderful things, like unicorn hamburgers and things like that. And so it was more fun and exciting and interesting for me to teach, wondering what the students would come up with that was different. And so it's important to keep the interest for the teacher as well.
ane to dida susu ing yu do se de ja lab de za bai khadi ne lo tak ba chik ba ji kyan ji lab de na susu to ayo mara cheza ani I khara tanda lo nga tru za tanda di jang isra TPRS di jang ne ni lo da rish tanda ni khara lo nga tru za korang gi yi ngo zhe di gi lo chen tie di chi gyu sara ani khadi ne lo tru la chi du zamba lo tru gi sawa din de su gi yores lo tru le tona le ya tang susu I ki yo ya nyamdo.
I have had a couple of tutors who have said, yes, read that. Yeah, okay, next, read the next line. Yep, okay, neither, yeah, okay. And I can see they're getting really bored. And I'm going, oh, I'm sorry, I make you bored. I'm sorry, I feel bad as a student. I don't want to come to class.
Kuran leni gi gen kashi ji yesara kunzu gi dije la dilo dije la diche dinde lam ne Kuran zo nyob ju dulas.
So your enthusiasm for teaching has to come from how you teach. In the same thing over and over again, not very exciting for you, but you make it different, but teaching the same thing with different stories each time, different things from students each time, makes it interesting for you.
An susu rangja chi ma de chera ani lobju gi susu lobju ngene dung so cher to lobju gi dam da su tu zamba ni susu da la de ji gwar susu to ing le da dinde chai des.
If you want a long career as a language teacher, you need to make sure that you're enjoying your every class you have so that you want to come to class every time. And you then have enthusiasm, the students feel, and they want to come to class too.
Kiranta gi gengi lega jera Timothy ne do os che de ba ye ba ina ani susu gi lobti che jera de la ganang di kores susu yang ganang che susu gi ing ten che la ba ina lobju ga chi ra an lobju nga lobta khare zinda de la gi gen di gi zinda de la lenye chu du sa me jera o din de chi thor gi res.
But you probably know all this, so maybe I'll stop talking and you can ask any questions you have.
So ta kiranzu den zo shingi gi resa che zang kurangi gi chi ya sam sha ne kiranzu gi tiwa di ya dingen sa tiwa.
Last one. I have a few questions. Gonpa, you have studied flip class, right?
Yes.
Okay, so does your method and changes anything like does flip classroom changes anything about your TPRS, like TPRS?
Yes. So during the pandemic, we had to go remote and we used Zoom. So what I did was I recorded some of the lessons that I was just like the ones I was just showing you about we were doing together. It's more fun to do it together, but I would record some short clips. Let me see if I can find one. Let me see if I can find one. Here we go.
你有男朋友吗？
So this is an example of one that I recorded.
没有，我没有男朋友。Billy 跟 Ned 说：“你要男朋友吗？” 米莉跟比利说：“要。”
It's not a very good example because I had to do it very quickly because we went into lockdown one day and I had to teach a class on Zoom the next day. But that would be the idea, I would think, is you could do something like we did together and have a recording of that, and they could watch it, and then maybe they'll go, oh, I'm not sure if I understand. But if they just watch it with the intention to understand, that's really important. I'm going to understand this. If I don't understand now, then when you come to class, you can review very shortly, like we did tonight. So tonight we did a short review, the personalized questions. ジグメさんは何が欲しいですか? And then we did a story. So the idea I would think would be to record that sort of circling by showing on the screen. The students watch before they come, and then when they come to class, you do a short review to make sure they've understood, and then you create the story together, because the story creation is the fun and exciting part.
And again, okay. I have a second question. So, you like when you go to the class, from the start, right, from the beginning of the semester. Now you start with you start with the 7 grammar words.
Not or not all at once. So in this
I get
demonstration, we did too many, but yes, focus on those first.
Then you don't go by the official school textbook.
So we had the education department said by the end of the high school, they must learn all this language. So I spread that language out over 6 years of high school. So there wasn't an official textbook. There wasn't a textbook you had to follow, but you can do this following a textbook too. So if you have a textbook you have to follow, then just get the grammar and the vocabulary and then do the circling and the storing for that grammar and vocabulary. And tell a story about that chapter of the textbook. That can work very well too. Because if you have most textbooks that I have seen will have story, like a dialogue or something to read, and sometimes not very interesting, but you can make your own stories up with the students using the same language from that. If it's chapter 1 has this to use, you take that language from chapter 1 and you do some circling, you do some personalized questions, you create a story together. They acquire the language. Then if you have to, go to the book and go, here's the part we've done.
Here in Isukia, we actually don't use 2 language, like only Tibetan. So how can we take like TPRS technique for our teaching? Like
so how do students understand the words in Tibetan?
With the image and with the TPR, physical response.
Yes, excellent. So if you're using images, images are better than what I was doing tonight, pointing to the English. If you have an image, that's better than what I was doing tonight. Because people will respond to the image more easily than they will respond to a word. So that's really good. So it's just repetition. Okay. So what I did when I was first experimenting with this, I did that too, but I found it too hard to find all the images. So how do you have an image for wants? How do you have an image for likes to do something? These are difficulties I came up with. I thought, oh, this is really hard, and I didn't have time to find all the images. If you already have it, great, but you might need to explain some of them too, because if you have an image for, what image would you have for likes to eat? If you have that as a, so one of the words are 想吃 in Chinese, feels like eating. That was the challenge. But if you have the images, that's better. You just do the same thing I was doing today, using the images instead of words.
So I want this kind of words before we try to explain them through the image. We show the vocabularies, right? The momos and subjective me, I. Then it becomes easier to explain. I like, want, love. It becomes easier.
So do you require them to memorize those things, or how do you get those first things them to remember?
We use flipped class methodology, right? So during their homework, they will learn. Like we'll give for their homework.
How?
And when the class starts, they already are familiar with those words.
So do you give them a list, Tibetan and their language, and they have to memorize that list before they come to class?
Images.
Not exactly list. We make a story and keywords where we can focus and frequently use in the class. Right, control.
Yes.
That's it. So research says that the most frequently used, if you have a dictionary of frequent usage, that's the best way to learn the language. Most frequently used words first. That's the best way to do it. So what we were saying before about the repetition and the interest and the story asking, that's all. It sounds to me like you can just take some of these things I've talked about tonight and put them into what you're already doing. It's not really very radically different.
Right.
So I have one question. Sorry. In Ezekiel, we can't use another language. So your controller already told you, sometimes we gesture or imagine. Sometimes we have experience or a feeling like this. We can't show gesture or imagine. So during that time, how can we don't know. Is a little bit confused.
So this is a ideological problem. So my thinking is that sometimes using the student's language is okay. I think, like I said, 15 or 20 seconds of grammar explanation in that language is okay. I think sometimes using the student's language is very, very important. But if that's against the Sukya policy, what to do?
Right.
Because, for example, when I was saying Marube, I said Jingme-san, Jingme-wa. And those things makes it very a stronger connection, faster. Because students want to feel connected to the teacher. And if they don't feel connected to the teacher, they're not going to keep coming back. So when I was teaching in Japan and I could speak Japanese, I would always speak English, but I would throw Japanese words in and they go, oh, he understands me because he understands my language. So it's good to be able to throw those words in, I think, but I'm not trying to change the Sukya policy.
I see. which one, what do you think, which one important, verb and noun?
So most of the grammar structures are verbs.
Verbs. So we use the only verb is Tibetan, but some noun, and we can use the another language.
Yes.
What
So
is-
like today, sorry, your question?
샤치 때 인지민지 배제 당와라 민칭가시 인지당 다 코란 속의 랭귀지 배제 당샤나 아니 가시 이튜네르다 마고 다 배게 마고네 이튜에 가슬라 아니 tindichena kandi useres tekogde yapundula sadange techara jinjeta.
Like Champala is saying, we'll be introducing verbs to the student in Tibetan, but noun in their language. Will that be effective?
Yes, because they will pick up the nouns in Tibetan very quickly. I mean, ideally, if there are any words that they already know. So, for example, chokoreto is a Japanese word. Even in India, I see chow mein, which comes from Chinese. So I would use in Japanese chokoreto, hot dog, chocolate hot dog, and ramen, because many people in Australia know ramen, the noodles. So it also depends on where your students are, because if they know momo, you can use momo, but make it interesting, like not chicken momo, veg momo, chocolate momo, elephant momo, or jigman momo. Let's have some momos made of jigman. Everyone goes, oh, that's strange, funny. So you can start to introduce little things like that. In linguistic terms, it's called a cognate, but that's not important. So this TPRS was started by a man who taught Spanish in America. And they used many, many, many Spanish words that are the same in English as in Spanish. Like class, clase, fantastic, fantastico. So they can use all those words that English speakers already know. And they can just throw them in easily. We can start to do that by momo and tashi and all these words that people might see already, names that might already know. And then you build more and more. So I would think it's okay to use the verb in Tibetan and the noun in their language, and then slowly change it. So once they've got the verb, ask them for something they want to know and give them that language. If they don't like momos, do they like noodles? Do they like tsampa? But then how do you explain tsampa only using Tibetan to a beginner? How do you explain momo?
Image.
Image, yes. But tsampa?
Image. Somehow.
Page.
Yeah.
But they're the challenges. So I think using, like you said, Tibetan noun, their language, sorry, Tibetan verb, their language now. But when you feel they know the verb, start changing into Tibetan nouns. But not, if it's same time, too much. But we're being recorded and I don't want to make problems for Asukya policy.
근데 주바 제결데 자우면데. 주바 제결이 제거지가 맞아. 나 칼라사게 나 먹고사게 나네 그래. 잠바사게는데. 살라데 데서나 민시
그
먹고
단계 때 이제 자서 공부기 간세나 want 생이데 샤치데 비게 가르자 그런 소의 게 라야디가 게 첨부체 미드서 첨부주 용다 제가 개지주 돈을 재산다고 때 샤치들 재원다고 지 순서 제가 대체네 맞아 좀 됐어 도지체 곰볼라
The other thing to remember with this type of circling and repeating and question asking, it cannot be used forever. After about maybe 200 hours, maybe 300 hours, it starts to get boring. So you have to change. This one, students find it starts to get boring after about 200 or 300 hours. So it depends on your students.
Yeah.
But by then, they can speak enough language. So you can start, we would use task-based learning. Have you heard of task-based learning?
Yes, we do.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's the next step. So that's the ideal because students bring the language they want to know.
Actually, this is the question I want to ask. Okay, okay. Actually, we do like see for as objective of our lesson, CFR, right? So we want the student to go to the actual restaurant to order something in Tibetan, right? Right. This is the aim of our of our teaching method. So how do you plan the student to go to the actual restaurant and because how to say that and order something in Japanese?
It's the same principle. So if you have like restaurant ordering as your goal, what's the language they need?
They need Tibetan?
In Tibetan. So you have to figure out what language do they need and then give them that basic language. So something that's very simple and transactional, like ordering at a restaurant, is comparatively easy because you've got limited possible language. So one of the skills students need to develop is the role playing in their minds. So we need to be able to role play. So you would introduce the grammar. How much is this? What is that? I'd like to eat. Those sort of grammar structures without too much vocabulary, and you get them to go and try and use that because they will come back and say, they said this is on the menu. I don't know what it is. So then you can give them the grammar structures. What is this? And you can give them personal examples. So when I first moved to Japan, I didn't have much Japanese language. So I would, in my head, have a conversation with the shop person. And at the time, I was teaching English and I wanted to play a game. And I didn't know the word in Japanese for dice. Do you know what a dice is? English? Yes. So I went to the shop and said, do you have one of those things you throw that has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6? And the shop person said, do you mean dice? And I said, I don't know. Please show me. And they showed me. I said, yes. I said, how do you say that in Japanese? And they told me. I always remembered it. So when, for example, if you've got a restaurant, as restaurant ordering in a restaurant is your goal, you can give them the basic grammar structures with a little bit of vocabulary, tell them to do it, and they'll go and do it and come back with questions. Because they won't know all the vocabulary. Because when I was living in the Cloud Ganj, I would go to different restaurants, and different restaurants would have the same thing written differently. And I'm going, what's that? And they would tell me this. I'm going, but why didn't you write that word? It's the same word. Why are you writing a different word for this restaurant? So that's the way to do it. Simply put, give them the grammar structures with a little bit of vocabulary, send them off to try and come back and report. Same principle. The grammar structure, many, many repetitions, interesting, fun repetitions, go and try in real life, come back and report. So are many of your students actually living somewhere they can actually try their Tibetan on people?
Not really, but the restaurant is the just example, right?
Yes.
Right. So we are the possible thing is most of the student can directly talk to the Rinpoches whom they love to talk, right?
Mm.
And in a honorific word,
Yes.
yeah. So this is the aim of some of the students. So we teach them, right?
Mm.
And we let them do the actual tasks. Right? This is just restaurant is just just an example. Right?
But most of the teachers that I have found, the Geshis and Rinpoches, get very excited when people try and speak to them in Tibetan. So they're very happy to try.
Right.
In Australia, anyway.
Vale.
They go, oh, you're speaking Tibetan. That's wonderful. Any other questions? So I have a question for you.
Oh.
Do you think any of the techniques we looked at, these 2 lessons, can be useful for you?
Definitely.
And how?
How? We have like 4 strands. We actually have 6 steps of mission plan and 4 middle of the steps are 4 strands, like meaning focus input, meaning focus output, and has a fluency development and grammar structure. Right? So in that grammar structure steps, we can just bring those grammar structures, some basic grammar structures. Right? This is so good. I was talking about some of our guys about this grammar structure, sound words, right? And actually, we do have like some drillings. We say in Tibetan Joba Jigir and Samju Joba. This is very similar to the circling. But circling has more ways to more words to say, right? And this is also we can use in 4 strings.
That's good. I'm curious to see if you can use this and then to hear about how you're using it.
Okay, sure.
And also, I have some ideas. It's already past 6:30, but I also have some ideas how it can be used to learn written language too. But we can talk about that another day.
All right, sure. And actually, right now, last time we discussed with the Emilia, Noya, and Siang, the admins. They couldn't join today, and they are going to watch this live video, and they are surely going to adjust these methods in our steps, right? And maybe we might need to like want you to have another meeting about the method. We might need that. So it's up to your schedule.
I'm very happy to do that. The most effective way is not me talking about it, but for teachers to try it and come back and ask questions, because it's not very effective just talking about it. It's like you don't want to talk about the taste of chocolate. You want to actually eat chocolate.
Taste it.
Or chocolate momos. I want to try chocolate momos now. Nutella momos or chocolate? No. So yes, we'll talk about schedule and we can talk more about it. But you've already been online for more than 2 hours. Yeah. So you need to go and eat dinner or rest or do something. Thank you for coming back tonight. I'm hopefully it's some benefit.
Sure.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bobola.
Thank you so much.
Arigato.
Arigato. Gozaimasu.
Arigato gozaimasu. Arigato gozaimasu. Polite form.
Arigato
Arigato
gozaimasu.
gozaimasu. 谢谢。
谢谢。
Thanks a lot.
그래서